Sophie.
Hello, hello, welcome. My name is Sophie. I'm going to start another reading vlog. I meant to do a vlog last week when I was traveling, and then I didn't because I was traveling. I'm back in France for the next few weeks, and on my way from New York to France, I stopped for a few days in the Azores, and it was absolutely beautiful. I loved it. It sort of feels to me like a kind of uncanny familiar place. It is not dissimilar to, in fact, the landscape of Brittany, but in just a more grandiose way. There are a lot of cows, which I love, a lot of blue hydrangeas, so that felt very familiar to me. The cliffs, a lot of these things were kind of almost familiar, but then in a not quite familiar way. I did film quite a lot of footage of my visit, so I'm putting it all together and I'm going to insert that right here.
Raining.
أخذنا سيارة، لا أخذنا أتوبيس.
Meanwhile, this week, let's see how much reading I actually get done. I'm not reading very quickly in July. It's not been a very reading-heavy month so far, and I don't think that's going to change, but that's fine. I'm taking in some sun, I've been swimming, and as of today, I've started writing again. I'm in fact going to try to get another 45 minutes to an hour done now, but I say this without any great enthusiasm. So let's see how much I do. Okay, I think I should talk about some recent reading, or else I fear I shall go another week without ever talking about books. Last week, I read Fernanda Melchor's Paradais in English, which I think is translated by Sophie Hughes. I read previously Hurricane Season a couple of years ago, and I mentioned in a relatively recent video about what books I want to get to this summer, wanting to get to Paradais. And so I did. It's similar to Hurricane Season if you've read that. It's set up in a similar way with very long blocks of text. Sometimes you'll go entire pages or several pages without even a paragraph break, which makes it overwhelming. But what makes it more overwhelming especially is that it is so violent. It is much like hurricane season, maybe even more so, dealing with really just the most horrible inner workings and outer workings of kind of human depravity. We are following two teenage boys, and especially one teenage boy, around a closed community, gated community, I guess is what I mean. One of the two boys lives in that community and becomes really, really obsessed with his neighbor, and especially the neighbor wife. The other boy, from whom we get the majority of the story, is working in that community. And he's sort of a good for nothing. He has failed out of school and he is now working this job that he hates. He has so much resentment and he's so full of toxic masculinity, of class envy and hatred. He hates this other boy. He hates everybody around him. He hates women. He hates himself. There is a lot of exploration of class, of race and violence against women, of toxic masculine culture, of aimlessness in young people and specifically young boys, of that feeling of being owed something and the festering. It's an interesting book. I do recommend it. I recommend it with considerations, if not reservations. You have to know you're getting into some really rough stuff, but I would say I'm still glad I read it. I remembered hearing a little bit about the kind of plot details, but I went in basically blind. But I knew what I was in for based on having read Melchor before. It took me a while to read, even though it's quite a short book. It's only something about 120 pages, but I just didn't want to live in that world. So sometimes I had to just walk away because it was both good and just like absolutely horrible, quite honestly. This week I've been reading two different books about family in their own way. Mostly I've been reading Family Lexicon by Natalia Ginzburg. This is translated into English by Jenny McPhee. I have also been wanting to read this for a while. I started it a few years ago, but just barely. And I also mentioned it as a book for the summer in that video. I also misrepresented it as a memoir. I mistakenly thought that it was a memoir. It is technically a novel. It is called a novel. But in my defense, it is sort of barely a novel. It is heavily, heavily inspired by Natalia Ginzburg's family and life and her experience of her family. And it is about the lexicon of a family unit, the specific words and phrases and expressions that get used, accents and dialects. It's great so far. I'm having a great time. Everybody is kind of kooky, and that's kind of the point, especially the figure of her father in this novel version he's an interesting, colorful character, let's say, sometimes annoying, frankly, but yes, so I'm very much enjoying this. I started first actually this Annie Ernaux, what is it called actually? Je ne suis pas sortie de ma nuit. I forgot to look up what it is in English. I'll add it. This is super short. I read about a third of it the other day and it's great, but it's also really, really rough to read because this is about the last couple of years of Ernaux's mother's life when she was kind of getting more and more entrenched in her Alzheimer's. For obvious reasons, that's difficult. It's also difficult, I think, to read in a family home. and thinking about my own family, I have no particular reason to fear Alzheimer's in my family, but it's just, the knowledge of losing family members is difficult, of course. So I probably will finish this, but it's kind of a rough read, and I needed something a little bit easier to sink into. This might get difficult too, because we're dealing with 20th century Italy, and I don't know if you heard, but some things happened. So this might, I suspect, this in fact is not going to be particularly easy either. But this one was a little bit difficult to deal with, especially right off of Paradais. Writing is hard. I'm about halfway through Family Lexicon, and I'm interested in how the idea of the family kind of in-speak becomes more than just the fodder for interesting anecdotes. It is the thing that kind of makes the family unit a recognizable unit. It's a component of differentiating their family from others, and also of creating the unit. But then more broadly, more politically, it's also the in-speak of a secure crowd. In the growing fascism of Italy at the time, it becomes representative of who is safe to be around. So it's not just a marker of the familiars for, fun reasons. It's also the marker of familiars for security reasons, not least of all for a family who is Jewish. So it's a very great analysis of familiarity as a home, literally family unit, and then also more broadly speaking within the political and social climate of Italy at the time. On the topic of family, to stay within that idea, I finished Annie Ernaux yesterday, the day before yesterday. What is time? I don't remember anymore. It was difficult and also interesting. What I liked a lot about the analysis of family here is identity for not just Annie Ernaux's mother, but for Ernaux herself. How does the change she sees in her mother affect how Ernaux think about herself? She has partially defined herself as her mother's daughter, and it is the daughter of a specific woman. So in kind of losing the mother that she knows, she is also partially losing a version of herself that she knows. A person who has been created in opposition sometimes to the mother that she grew up with, or in combination with, how they have been similar to one another or not. And so to see this woman change and in some ways lose herself or be lost means that Ernaux has to come to terms with who she is as a daughter, and of course come to terms with aging in general, and how her life has changed since she was a child, how it's changed as an adult, how she is as a mother herself. So it was a difficult read, but a poignant one, I would say. Meanwhile, have I been writing this week? Yes, slowly, plodding along, but I have been. Right now I'm on a high because it is late morning and I actually have done some goodly amount of writing for the morning, and so I'm very proud. It's always just this lovely hyper feeling when you actually get a couple of good paragraphs done, and especially before noon. And so we've reached sunset on another Sunday. Thank you for watching the vlog. I'll catch you in the next one.